Come on, Russia, ain't nothing wrong with you. Got it going on. Russia. Russia's in the house. Come on, y'all doing
Lukashenko.
Oh, Lukashenko.
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 Yeah, Lukashenko, yeah.
Lukashenko.
Yeah.
Downtown.
Chased by the deep state, fighting for independence, thinking about revolution, looking for alternative solutions. The enemies of the deep state will tell you what others even don't dare to think. Manuel Ochsenreiter and Mateusz Piskorski.
Hello, hello, hello. This is the geopolitical podcast, DieGutenMenschen, Public Enemies of the Deep State. My name is Manuel Ochsenreiter. I'm editor-in-chief of the German news magazine Zuerst. And on the other side is my friend and colleague Mateusz Piskorski from Poland. Hello, Mateusz. How are you doing today?
Hello. Well, we have a very, very hot August, politically hot, of course, yes?
Yes.
So there are a lot of topics to be discussed in our podcast, and I guess that no one expected that. Basically all the journalists and experts are having holidays and thinking about not very important things during the summer and during August. And we have, at least 3 or 4 even important things happening during this summer, of course. Most of them are discussed in our podcast. So we have a really hot political summer, and that's why it's a good time for us and a good time for our listeners, because we couldn't live without that, yes?
Yes, and usually the summers are very boring. In Germany, we call that even the summer hole, das Sommerloch. This is the time when totally unspectacular topics and boring topics and, news topics which would under ordinary conditions never manage to get to get into a headline or into page number 1 all of a sudden. There's even a geopolitical topic. Years ago, you know what in Germany was on the top pages of the yellow press many years ago? A geopolitical topic, a very interesting one.
What was that?
It was if the Spanish island of Mallorca should be a German federal state or not, because it is the most popular island for Germans to go on summer holidays. So that is what we discussed back then.
Well, that's true. Anyway, sometimes also because in Poland we call it cabbage season.
Okay. Yes.
Yes, that there's nothing to talk about. Anyway, we have some discussions about the East mostly this time in Poland. Of course, it's a very hot topic, and I guess it's also discussed in Germany as well. Yes.
Now, yes, it became. I remember when we did our first podcast about Belarus, it was not really so present in media. Now it is, also thanks to some German journalists who went to Minsk and who are now since almost 2 weeks frequently reporting from there. So now it is a topic, but what I can say is, I think I said it already with our last podcast, that whoever is listening to our podcast belongs to the best informed group of people, because you were with your analysis until now always right, but I'm sure you know that.
I'm too modest to confirm.
Yeah, this is why we do a podcast with 2 people. So with our modesty, we can confirm to each other how great we are, isn't that?
Yes.
And can react.
All your forecasts became true.
I'm just a small worker in the vineyard of the Lord. Please don't say that. It's our humbleness and modesty what makes us so great. No,
Yes.
but when it comes to Belarus, really, I remember that. I was when we had all these images coming from the Belarus opposition of these marches, of these protests, and the Belarus state media was not really reacting. Or I think our last podcast we were speaking especially about the media and information war, what is going on. I remember also that you said something like, well, it will also depend now how long it will go like this. And it really seems like that now the Belarus side, the side of President Lukashenko, is gaining some ground. Is this the right impression? I mean, I even share this impression with the mainstream media colleagues from Europe, who are, of course, complaining about that. But is this the right impression? We had now also some gatherings and marches in favor of the Belarus president and the government. So there are some changes now visible. Is that right?
Yes, but anyway, Lukashenko and his people were late. I mean, they should have organized all those events, all those pro-presidential rallies 1 week before, just when the opposition started to organize themselves. And that's the problem, yes, because we were witnessing complete lack of response from the authorities. We have also witnessed an excess violence from the policemen, which were somehow, let's say, provoked by the protesters, of course, and by the violent behavior of the protesters. On the other hand, from some, let's say, inside sources in Belarus, I have already heard an opinion, or even not an opinion, an information that some, let's say, police generals there were working actually for the wrong side, yes?
Yeah.
For the opposition, because actually the protests were triggered by the excessive abuse of violence, yes? And this excessive abuse of violence led Lukashenko to a very difficult position. Yes.
Yeah.
Why? Because on the one hand, if he would, let's say, condemn the excessive use of violence, if he would condemn the policemen, the so-called power bloc in Belarus, he would be perceived by some of the officers, the generals, and the ordinary policemen as being not loyal to them. Yes.
Yeah.
And if they would perceive him as someone who is not loyal to them, they should also feel that they don't have to be loyal to him. Yes, that was the biggest threat for Lukashenko at a certain moment. And on the other hand, if he would not condemn the excessive use of force, then he would trigger even more and more opposition protests. Yes, so there was not a good choice existing in such a situation for him. Nevertheless, I think that in the coming weeks we will have, let's say, a kind of investigation, an internal investigation there in Belarus. And as my friend told me from there, who is quite well informed, the general or a group of generals who were responsible for this provocation, for excessive use of force, will be found somewhere in Monte Carlo. He supposed talking that they were always supporting the opposition and now they are doing it from abroad. This is the first scenario, the positive one for them. Or they will be found somewhere in the forest, or their bodies will be found in the forests of Belarus, yes? But not killed by the authorities, but by those who will be willing to hide the fact that the whole color revolution in Belarus was, very, very deeply inspired also in the internal circles that they were cooperating to provoke the protests, also with some internal circles of the Belarusian power bloc. That will be a very important thing in the coming weeks, I guess. And now, as we have seen, Lukashenko has demonstrated that he is supporting the ordinary policeman. So he has made a decision, a choice from the two options to support the power bloc. Yes, that's why I guess that the most clever solution for him would be now to show his loyalty to the power bloc on the one hand, on the other hand to point out those people who are responsible or who are working with his opponents within the power bloc. Just a few people there, and to make them responsible for what has happened. Yes, not the ordinary policemen, but those who are organizing this provocation with the excessive use of force. We have seen historical photos and films with Alexander Lukashenko holding a Kalashnikov. Yes,
yes, when he stepped out of the helicopter. Yes.
That's why as several political analysts, not only in the West but also in Russia, are thinking of it as of a huge mistake from the point of view of PR. Mm-hmm. What is your opinion on that?
Well, with a foreign view on such footage, the interpretation is always or most often a totally different one than maybe inside the country. I was thinking about the message of this, since and I know that such a footage is not recorded by coincidence, and it is not broadcasted and published by coincidence, of course. So there is a certain message, and it can be several messages including in the scene. I think that what his critics see, and maybe what also followers might see and might not like, is that carrying a gun is a sign of aggression, of course, and a sign of I'm willing to go now into fight, and I'm willing to send bullets, because otherwise why to carry AK-47? But since we just spoke also about the role, for example, of the ordinary police in this country, and maybe even the betrayal of the ordinary police by some police commanders and generals, I also thought that this footage might give the signal of Lukashenko to show the police guys, look guys, I'm one of your guys. I'm not wearing now the shiny uniform with this big Soviet hat they are still wearing in Belarus, but that it is maybe also some kind of showing of solidarity. The point is that I am not sure how it is received in Belarus. I'm sure how it is received by the opposition, or how they will interpret it, and they will of course interpret it for his total disadvantage. But as I said, I am not sure how it is received in Belarus, and I'm not sure how it is received in the Russian world itself.
Mm-hmm. Well, it has of course advantages and disadvantages, yes, but to make all the picture complete, you would have to add two other pictures and movies from the same day of Lukashenko. The first one was that he is going out to the policemen. The policemen are applauding him. There are applaudissements from the police. He is talking very shortly to the police.
To ordinary policemen, right? Not to generals, first of all.
Of course, exactly, to ordinary policemen. And they are telling him that, assuring him that they will be loyal forever to him, yes? So this was, of course, also, let's say, prepared before as a kind of PR activity. But that was a very important signal to all those from inside the regime, from inside the power structures in Belarus, that there is still loyalty and there is nothing to be afraid of when it comes to those members of the inside circles of power in Belarus who could go on the other side, who could betray him and go to the opposition. Yes, so there is a clear sign that there is still loyalty between him and his people, including the power bloc, which is the most important now in those conditions. Another picture was that he is flying in his helicopter. I don't know if you can see.
No, that is. I just saw this one scene from that day with stepping out of the helicopter with the gun.
So the movie was taken inside the helicopters. Someone of his people took the movie, recorded that, and he is looking at the streets. He's flying over Minsk, of course, looking at the streets, and he sees that there are only a few protesters, very dispersed on one of the streets, yes. And he comments, well, they have escaped like rats. Yes, these are the words of Lukashenko, yes?
Yeah.
So he's showing a clear opponent. He's practically excluding the possibility of any kind of negotiated regime change. Mm-hmm. That was also a very important signal, yes, I think, which means that Lukashenko is, he announced before that he is willing and able to fight till the end, yes. And I think that in the eyes of his supporters, in the eyes of those who, let's say, in my opinion, they are the majority of the population of Belarus. He made a good PR operation with that, yes. Regardless, I mean, if you would ask about let's say, influence of such an operation and of such pictures on the young people living in big cities who are anyway supporting not him, but supporting the opposition. I mean, they are, of course, motivated to support it, but that's another question. He, of course, might, let's say, additionally make them more furious and so on, yes, with such a picture. But he's not appealing to those people because he perfectly knows, and his advisors perfectly know and realize that he will not get the support or convince to something those people who are protesting on the streets of Minsk, yes?
Yes, absolutely. I was thinking the same, that he is addressing with this, of course, all those people also who are neither protesting against him nor going on the streets for him. And I think that's very normal in a society, that those who support the government, and also in the case of Belarus, that these are not necessarily the people who drive in buses to Minsk to show their support, or that might need much more for them to show their support than it needs for the opposition to show their discontent. That is, that is clear. And anyway, I mean, Lukashenko had. That is simply what I saw about Belarus in the time in the last decades when Lukashenko was governing. He always presented himself not so much like the guy who is the friend of the elites of the country. I mean, you know, I think in the West they make even a lot of fun about him, that when there is the harvest, that they show him on the field with corn in his hands, or that he visits a cow farm where he is upset about the bad treatment of the cows. So his PR strategy was always to show him as as the man of the people, or the man who is somehow defending the interests of the people and not so much the interests of certain elites, even not the interests of governors or so. I remember very well in this footage about the cow farm where he dismissed the governor because the cows were treated bad.
Yes. So that was his image, and he is now also appealing to the people who really believe he is still strong. He managed to show his strength, and endurance. So that was it. Well, in my personal opinion, I mean, we shouldn't judge this PR operation from the point of view of population of a big city or some middle class young people and so on. Yes, we should acknowledge that it was all targeted at his own base of support, and this base of support is applauding the strong leader. Yes, so for the first time since several days, he has clearly indicated that he is strong enough, that he is not going to surrender. That's very important. I have also listened to his speeches.
Yeah.
To the people at the meetings, at the rallies he organized, and I must say that he is in a very good condition. Yes, I mean some people were speculating that he has some health problems and so on.
Even COVID was suspected.
Yes.
Yeah.
He is in a really good condition. His speeches are again really charismatic. That looks like an electoral campaign, actually. I mean, it's after the elections, but he's only now doing the electoral campaign. Because actually he should also have done it before the elections. If they would have an information that such things are prepared by outside forces, the so-called color revolution, he should build up his support before the elections, not after. But anyway, he's late. He's doing everything late, but he's doing it quite effectively, I guess, now. And probably, that's also my opinion, probably if there's nothing extraordinary happening, like provocation with snipers as it was in the Ukraine, yes, before, he will manage to calm down the country in the coming weeks. So now it's very important, I mean, to avoid such situations and provocations as it was in Ukraine. That's why I guess that it's very, very important now to have a good counterintelligence working there inside, and I hope that it will work, and that there won't be such provocations as before. On the other hand, when it comes to PR, I'm also following the Telegram channels, which are the most important, as we have already told in our podcast. Yeah. Were the most important source of organizing the protests, of the whole discussions around the protests in Belarus. The most influential social media, I guess, there. And I have noticed since around 1 week that he's again gaining ground in the Telegram also, yes? So there are more and more Telegram channels and people commenting in his advantage. Yes, so probably, I mean, some people try to explain that with the fact or a gossip. I don't know if it's actually true or not, but anyway, there are some gossips that some PR advisors from Russia came, yes, to support him. And to be honest, yes, it was very easy to see that he has managed in 1 week, only in 1 week after the elections, after the protests began, he has really managed to do something very effective when it comes to PR with using the modern platforms like Telegram, with using the social media. So this is completely different Lukashenko than he was just after the elections. Yes, and he is gaining ground.
I have another question. If we speak already about the power of images and the power of footage and also the messages which are transferred by such images, what do you think about the latest photo with with one of the female Belarus opposition leaders, with the French color revolution philosopher Bernard-Henri Lévy? Such a photo for sure was not taken as a coincidence, and it was not somehow leaked. Also, that kind of photo might bring some kind of message. And I remember when we spoke in our last podcast about Belarus, you always criticized, or not criticized, you mentioned that the opposition lacks of something very essential, a program. You said the opposition knows they are against Lukashenko, but they don't really know for what they stay, what they want. They are against the long-term president. So with this indication now, with this meeting with Lévy, is this like a programmatic sign already? Can we interpret it like that, or is it far too much in one picture?
We can interpret it like that, yes, because we know who is Bernard-Henri Lévy.
Yes.
We know his role in Libya, in
Syria,
Ukraine, multiple revolutions. We know his statements and so on, yes.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if the young guys protesting on the streets of Minsk have an idea of who Bernard-Henri Lévy is. Yes.
Yeah, but the young guys on the Maidan for sure also didn't know who he is. Yeah. So
yes. So yeah. It is a clear signal. I think this is a kind of threat to Lukashenko. Yes, they are showing who is behind. Mm-hmm. They are trying to show that. The guy who is a symbol of color revolutions is behind all of that, just to threaten Lukashenko that very, very serious circles and forces are into the process, yes, and are coordinating it. So I think this was a message to him and to all those few, who are very few actually, who know about the technology of color revolutions. Yes, we have a professional support, a professional background. That was the message. I even doubt that Tikhanovskaya herself knows who Bernard Lévy.
I was about to ask that. Yes.
She's really, a kind of very, very typical housekeeper without any knowledge of.
Because I think she would also make a picture with you, me, and Alexander Dugin if we pass by. Yes, that's the point.
Because she doesn't know.
Yes, exactly.
Who Henri Lévy is.
Yeah, I am absolutely sure that this picture was done and became viral on initiative of Lévy and not on her initiative. I'm absolutely sure. Absolutely.
And by Lévy and other coordinators of what is happening now, of the color revolution. Yes. So this is, actually, she has just stated that when she was asked some questions about her political and economic program for the future and so on, she simply answered that she is not keen in economics and that she is not a politician. So can you imagine a woman who pretends to be and who let's say declares herself a future president, says that she's not into economics and politics. Yes,
yes,
that she doesn't have any idea on that.
Yes.
So that shows her level of knowledge of the whole process, and shows that this poor woman is just an instrument, of course.
Exactly. Those who would run the country after maybe successful putsch against Lukashenko wouldn't be for sure these three women. Yeah, they might be somehow in a symbolical service, but the country would be for sure run by other people. Yeah, that is.
Yes, of course. So anyway, I guess that it's more and more clear for us. I also guess that I have even noticed some positive signals from abroad. Even from the West. For instance, a good friend of mine Professor Bruno Drwęski from Paris, from Sorbonne, is now permanently invited by the mainstream French media to comment on Belarus. And he is, of course, talking about the threat of color revolution, by the way. Yeah. So geopolitically, we might also see a kind of shift. I mean, as far as I know, Germany as well and France. So most important EU countries are not going to openly support any kind of color revolution there, yes?
This is, by the way, yeah. This is a very, very interesting point because, I mean, one can criticize the German government for so many things, of course. But our mainstream journalists, and especially one who is right now in Minsk, and since if you follow him on Twitter, you will see that he totally forgot that he's there as a journalist and not as a cheerleader for a color revolution. So, you know, you read then things like, oh, I saw the people and I have tears in my eyes in the evening. So that is the level right now of German mainstream journalism there. But all these people are heavily complaining that Angela Merkel, the German chancellor, is not ready to give a clear message of support for the opposition and a clear message of dismissal towards Lukashenko. Other German politicians were, of course, already doing that, but not the German chancellor. So there she might have very, very good consultants, or she might have a certain instinct, what sometimes also appears in mainstream politics, that a politician has an instinct that one shouldn't do a certain thing right now, even if the whole political class is expecting you to do that. So that, until now, she was not doing. Of course, she was criticizing Lukashenko. Of course, she gave some soft, supportive messages for the people on the streets who are protesting, but she is far from doing what was done, for example, with Syria in 2011, when you remember when almost all heads of states in Europe all of a sudden said that that Bashar al-Assad is not the rightful leader of his country and there cannot be any negotiations with him, where they closed their own doors for any kind of reconciliation, where I think Europe is suffering until today. Because that was, of course, wrong to do so. And you cannot say you never should talk to a certain person and then do it, then you show weakness. So I think Merkel maybe learned out of that case. What do you think?
Well, exactly. And the same goes for Macron, I think. And practically, if you look at the reactions of most European countries, with one exception, or with two exceptions, United Kingdom, of course, and who is behind. I mean, the British are also behind the protests, like the US, or some even claim that this project is more British than American, actually, when it comes to Belarus.
That's very likely, because, I mean, I think there are for sure American institutions involved, but I have heavy doubts that this is on the main agenda of President Trump right now to support regime change in Belarus. He is doing far other things, and I mean, with all criticism towards Trump, we can say that when it comes to most foreign projects, that he is not very hot-hearted in these things. He's giving some messages, of course, and so on, but he's not very engaged with his state institutions. I think that can we say, and this is why I think you are right. It is mainly a European or let us say a British project there. Yes.
Well, the Brits are actually going more and more into the post-Soviet area. This is another topic we might discuss another time. But just a few weeks ago, there was a nomination of a new new director of MI6, who is exactly into the specialized in this post-Soviet area, particularly Caucasus.
Okay.
But anyway, they are again trying to be involved in the so-called big game, which dates up to the 19th century. Yes, the rivalry between Russia and Great Britain in Eurasia. Yes, so
yes,
I think that they are definitely involved in that. And of course, there are some neighboring countries like Lithuania, Poland, and Latvia, who are also quite anonymously supporting what is going on there. Lukashenko actually told about some coordination centers located in Warsaw or near Warsaw and in Vilnius. So this is also the game they are playing. Actually, of course, being an instrument as usual. Yeah? Some other coordinators. Nevertheless, if you look at the most important European Union countries, as we have already noticed, they are not vocally very supportive for the regime change and for the color revolution in Belarus. And that's another factor which makes me more optimistic when it comes to the future of Lukashenko. I guess there will be some negotiated change in Belarus in some time. It might take a lot of time. It might include the possible amendments to the constitution and so on and so on. Yes, but if something happens there, it would be more like an evolution than a color revolution. Yes.
Yeah.
In the future.
I mean, Lukashenko himself announced already a referendum about a new constitution and then maybe somewhere new elections. He doesn't make right now, or he doesn't give right now the impression of the totally bolted and inflexible dictator, how he is shown. I mean, he's giving some signs of readiness in this direction, right?
Yeah, but the problem is that there is no one on the other side. Yes, yeah. I mean, they are not organized in most of the countries which somehow transformed under the pressure of a color revolution. You had very, very well-defined group of leaders of a protest, yes?
Yeah.
And, I cannot imagine that Lukashenko will sit and discuss with Madame Tikhanovskaya about the constitution change, yes?
that would be very much for his advantage, you know?
She would agree for everything, I guess.
Yes.
There are no partners in the opposition for such.
We have for this in Germany like a saying or a figure of speech. It is like going with a dagger to a pistol duel, you know.
Yes.
So, but before we forget, we have also another topic we shouldn't ignore, and maybe just when we are now slowly heading towards the end of this podcast, we should discuss. You know, we have now a special guest in Berlin, or Angela Merkel has a special guest in Berlin.
I know that she has a special guest, and that's really something shocking for me because, first, when we had all this information about Mr. Navalny landing in Omsk, feeling bad in the aeroplane and so on, I'm not talking about the reaction of anti-Russian Western media because it's not worthy to discuss, yes? But look at the reaction of Russia itself. Yes, I mean, some of my Russian friends commented on that since the times of Joseph Stalin, there was no one who would get such an attention and care from the Russian state, and no one was, let's say, so well guarded, and everything was done actually to recover him, yes, to save his life there. So can you imagine any other country where a kind of opposition leader, any kind of opposition leader, would have such an attention from the state structures? I mean the positive attention, because they were trying to rescue him, yes.
Absolutely, yeah. That was also my very, very first thought, that the importance given to Navalny right now is you cannot compare to any other case, yes?
Yes, of course, because they perfectly understand, and they are right, that that would be a huge and really painful image strike and effect if he would die there. Yes.
Yeah,
so,
and from the perspective of the Russian state, absolutely unnecessary. So this is, by the way, what is always a question appears when I see how the West, he was poisoned and Putin himself gave the order and the Kremlin poisoned Navalny. That. I mean, when Navalny is running at elections, he is getting, I don't know how many percentage. Does he get 1, 2, something like that? Or his supported candidates, yeah. So
well, first, he's well known, and he even doesn't reject the fact that he is closely connected and in touch with the U.S. embassy there, yes,
yeah,
and that he's getting some funding from U.S. Foundations and so on. Second, his political agenda, his political program. Is, let's say, not too attractive, because he's actually talking about the division of Russia. I mean, what was very, very dangerous at a certain moment when it comes to Navalny and his career is that he used the same language, talking about the people from Caucasus and so on, as the language which was used and condemned by the mainstream by the European anti-immigrant far right. Yes, that was quite interesting, and no one cared that he is actually insulting the people from North Caucasus and so on. He was doing that because he had a strategy to use the so-called ethno-nationalism just to create conditions for an implosion of Russia and for division of it in the future. Yes, so he's quite openly anti-Russian. His political statements might be supported by a very, very small group of anti-system opposition there. Yes, so not more than 1%. From this point of view, Navalny as a leader of the opposition is a very good choice for the authorities.
Yes, exactly.
It's even now more dangerous for them, because the absence of Navalny might enable someone definitely more effective and more dangerous with a higher political potential, to become the leader of the so-called opposition. Yes. For the moment being. So, yes, Kremlin was the last party which could be potentially interested that something wrong happens to Navalny. Well, now I think that they have a kind of relief, because now the life and health of Mr. Navalny is in very, very professional hands of
good German hands
of Chancellor Merkel.
Yes,
who invited him. I think that. I mean, we have noticed several phone talks between Chancellor Merkel and President Putin lately. So I guess that also such topics were somehow coordinated, and that it's not a coincidence, and that everything was agreed. Yes, between the heads of states as well. So I guess that he will spend some time there anyway. In the meantime, those people who are coordinating the Russian opposition might try to invent a new leader, yes? And let's see who could be the potential new leader.
Yeah, maybe Ksenia Sobchak.
She's now more into business. I mean, into some corruption.
Yes.
In the Russian Far East, as we all know. So I don't think she would get even 1% as Navalny did, yes?
But maybe
actually she would be even better from the point of view of Kremlin, yes, if she would become a leader of the opposition.
Yes, and by the way, just maybe as the very last anecdote of this podcast, you heard. I mean, Ksenia Sobchak is like a role model which shows the deep misunderstanding and the deep problem the West has with Russia. Did you hear about her scandal? I think it was with Audi. Ksenia Sobchak became some years ago one of the testimonials the German car producer Audi was advertising with. I don't know. Did you hear about the scandal?
No.
She's not anymore. Yeah, but of course she was taken by Audi because she was a face of the courageous Russian opposition and the liberal opposition and so on and so on. So they wanted to have a little bit of her fame, that this fame is transferred also on the car of Audi. Mm-hmm. But what they never understood is that even maybe a Russian liberal is different to a European liberal. So when all these Black Lives Matter protests came in the US and then also in Europe, she gave some, I think on Twitter or Instagram, I think these people are communicating via Instagram, I think, right? These it girls.
Yes.
So yes.
Like the celebrities, yes.
Yeah, yes. So she gave some very sharp comments in the direction of Black Lives Matter and protests, which could be interpreted with the eyes of a Western liberal already as racist. And so she gave a very, very bad surprise to her media partner Audi, and they kicked her as advertising face. So this just as a short and little and also funny anecdote about the deep misunderstanding. So, and I
guess that neither Audi nor any other company from Germany will think of any kind of advertisements with Navalny. Yes.
Yeah, not if they hear how Navalny, for example, would speak about Caucasians or Central Asians.
Yes.
Yes.
Anyway, let's look what's going on in Charité in Berlin. I have seen pictures showing that it's now the best guarded place in Germany. Even some services of the Kanzleramt are involved there, not only the ordinary police, yes, so they are watching after him, and he's probably the most safe man in the world.
And that is good for us all. Alles wird gut. Everything will be fine.
We could only dream of having such an attention from the state structures and the Russian ones, yes, as he has, yes.
Yeah. I just had already pity for Navalny. Imagine he's waking up from his coma in Berlin and notices all of a sudden that he is now in a country where he is total boring mainstream with all his with his political program. He's not any more special there.
Yes. But anyway, I guess that regardless his health condition in the future, of course, we hope that he will recover. Anyway, regardless his health, he will stay for some time in Germany or in some other Western countries.
I think so. I think he will use that.
So
I think he will. Yes,
he might successfully join his colleagues and sponsors like Khodorkovsky, for instance.
Yes, exactly, in London or Switzerland.
Yes,
the beautiful apartments and areas.
Beautiful, comfortable life.
Not like us in our bunkers.
Yes, that's the difference. Yes,
it was a pleasure to talk to you again, and I look forward for the developments which are now coming within the next days in both topics we were speaking today about. For sure, Belarus we will see what is happening, and we'll see the direction where the events are going, and also when it comes to Navalny, when he will wake wake up and maybe giving his first big press conference. Two topics where we can be very curious and where it is not very easy to predict what will happen.
Yes, for sure. We'll go back to those topics, as well as there are some more interesting ones. So I really hope that we'll be very, very soon recording and presenting to our listeners another podcast.
This program was presented to you by Manuel Ochsenreiter and Mateusz Piskorski, the hottest dissident who won't violate any time the global rules against racism, extremism, or any other bad isms.